From the death of George Floyd, an unarmed black man at the hands of police in the U.S., has come a major rethink on how policing is done. In Canada, there are cries to defund the police and instead better fund social services and to use more body cameras, an idea that gets the Prime Minister's support.
It is something that is, in my opinion, what we need to move forward with.
Brenda Lucki is the commissioner of the RCMP. Today, we talked about all of that in a one-on-one interview.
Commissioner Lucki, thank you for making the time for us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
On Monday, Deputy Commissioner for Alberta, Curtis Zablocki, said he doesn't believe there's systemic racism in policing in Canada. Do you agree?
You know, we live in a society where inequalities persist, and police are part of that society. So we absolutely have the responsibility to examine the ways in which we, as an organization, can do better and look at racism within our organization.
I'm not sure you answered the question, though. Do you believe that there is systemic racism inside police organizations, including yours in the country?
That is an interesting question, because in the last couple of days, I've honestly heard about 15 or 20 definitions of systemic racism, and if it refers to an unconscious bias that exists, and we definitely have that in the RCMP, and we are not immune to it at all in any case. And there are times when our members don't act in accordance with our core values, which includes racism. And it's those times that we have to make sure that that doesn't happen.
There are Canadians all over this country who we have heard from before, but we are hearing from much more vocally right now, who do not feel comfortable calling the police, who feel scared around the idea of asking the police for help. They do not feel protected by police. How do you feel when you hear that?
That completely saddens me. If you want to know the honest truth, in no way does any police agency, including the RCMP, not want to be trusted by the citizens who we serve. So we need to get better. This is a big time in our history, and it's a big time for police to step up. And I think the bar is set up really high, but so are my expectations for all employees in the RCMP.
I need to ask you some specific questions about incidents that have occurred and come to public attention as of late. I know that you've seen the pictures of Chief Alan Adam, who says that he was brutally beaten by RCMP back in March. What did you think of those pictures when you saw them, Commissioner?
Well, nobody likes to see pictures like that. Obviously, that case is under investigation, and if there is actions that are not in line with our core values and in line with what happened in that incident, those members will be held to account.
I understand it's being investigated, but the RCMP also said that they reviewed the actions of their members in Alberta. They found them reasonable. Do you think for anyone to end up looking like that after an intervention with police is reasonable?
There's always a set of circumstances, and depending on the circumstances and the level of resistance, sometimes there are intervention actions that need to be taken. Obviously, we never want to see anybody get hurt when we're dealing with anybody in any incident, but it does happen.
Let me ask you about another video where an RCMP officer hit an Indigenous man who was intoxicated with his vehicle door before arresting him. What did you think when you saw that video? And does that seem like a reasonable response to deal with public intoxication?
From the outside looking in, I have to be honest, it does not look like a reasonable response. Again, we've asked the Ottawa Police Service to come in and to investigate that particular incident. And to see what exactly happened in that case.
I know that you removed the chokehold in the 70s under the RCMP, that you do not use the knee hold that was employed on George Floyd in the United States and that killed him. You do, however, continue to use the carotid hold, which allows an officer to place their arm to make the person render them unconscious if needed. Do you still plan to allow that hold to be used, and why so?
That carotid control is at the very end of the continuum in the most lethal part of our intervention model. And that is when a member of the public or a member of the police is faced with grievous or bodily harm. And it's right at the same location as our firearm would be. It's when something serious or death or bodily harm is going to happen. We will definitely review it because I know from what I heard in the media in the United States, they will be reviewing that as well.
You have decided, or you have agreed with the Prime Minister, that body cameras need to be used by some members of the RCMP. Did you raise the issue of body cameras with the Prime Minister, or did he?
Yeah. We spoke about just actions to increase transparency. And of course, we are open to anything that provides a greater trust, a greater accountability, a greater public confidence. And if there is a tool and technology that would do that, then we're obviously open to it. I have to say, though, it's not the end-all and be-all of accountability and transparency. A camera is not going to make a person completely accountable.
Where does the funding for these body cameras come from? Because I would presume you're either going to have to ask for more money from the federal government or divert money from somewhere else, and I'd be interested to know where else that money might come from.
In the RCMP structure, we are contracting our services out to the provinces. So we have to have discussions with each province and territory who is responsible for some of that funding. If we, depending on what happens, we may have to reprioritize some of our strategies under our digital policing strategy. And see if we can move money around for that. But we have to have discussions with the provinces and the territories.
Because they may have to foot some of the bill? Is that the suggestion? If they're subcontracting you out, then they may have to pick up the cost for some of that?
Yeah, it's all in our policing contract because we have different policing contracts with the provinces and municipalities.
Do you believe that the RCMP has or ever had the trust of racialized communities, whether it be Black people, people of color, or Indigenous communities in this country?
I would think that there are people within those communities that trust the police, but I would also say there's probably parts of those communities that don't trust the police. And that tells me that we need to get better. I am so determined for us to be the police agency of Canada that people can look up to and be proud of, and that they trust our organization. Does that mean we are going to make mistakes? Absolutely, we're going to make mistakes, but it's what we do after we make those mistakes. And we need to learn from that, and we need to be better at that.
But do you think, Commissioner, there's a large conversation happening around defunding police forces around the world right now. Do you still believe that RCMP members are best equipped to deal with mental health crisis, substance abuse problems, familial problems, domestic abuse problems? Are these really the people that should be going into Canadian homes and communities to deal with these situations?
When we deal with people in a crisis, it's not a singular approach. The RCMP is but one aspect of that approach, and I think we need to work better with our social agencies.
But would you agree to give up funding for your police force so that more money can be put into social services and help the response that you're talking about? The funds that we have are the funds that we need to be able to police the Canadian public. But I would say that we need to work better together. And maybe we've had instances in some of our areas where we've actually embedded mental health professionals within the police so that they can respond together and use that response so that we are better at responding to people in those types of crises. Commissioner, thank you so much for all your time today. I appreciate it very much.
No, and thank you for your respectful questions.
Thank you.